Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Good.
That's better than I expected. All right. So my name is Anthony Suarez, and today I'm going to talk about my first retail job ever, which is none other than GameStop. So before we enter this wonderful world of GameStop, I do have a couple of disclaimers, so that way we get a better feel of what this presentation is about. So first off, I'm going to try to be as informative and as neutral and as objective as possible, meaning that I'm going to try my best to not bash GameStop as much as I want to. Secondly, I'm not pulling stuff out of my behind, meaning that the things that I'm going to tell you is legitimate and is based off of my own experiences. And lastly, although I really don't have respect for the company, I do have to respect it with regards to like sensitive information. So like, I can't say any names, any of that stuff. So first and foremost, in case you guys don't know, GameStop is pretty much considered to be the best place to buy physical copies of games. You have Walmart and Best Buy, which also sell video games, but GameStop pretty much blows out the competition because they just have way better deals than any other store. And so when you're a customer and you're going to like any retail store, you have expectations and you want pretty much an ideal experience. So when it comes to GameStop, it really comes down to two things. The first one is that everyone is able to find the perfect game or the game that they're looking for. So if you're a customer and you know which video game you're looking for, then that's great because you can just go to the store, pick up your game, and then get out. But what if you're a customer that doesn't know what he or she wants? Pretty much you come to the second point, which is that everyone wants a friendly and sociable environment. Meaning that if you don't know which game you're looking for, then you'd want the associates and even the customers themselves to help you out, to find that perfect game for you. Also, people want a sociable environment, meaning that they want to go there and then have conversations with people that have the same interests in them, or talk about the latest video game, and that applies to customers and associates as well. And so this video pretty much exemplifies what a customer really wants.
Oh, you suck. Oh no! Face! Yes!
So basically, you come in and you see a GameStop employee and a customer playing a really awesome video game. That's pretty much what the customers want.
Oh! Seriously! With the cancel.
So it was for those reasons that I pretty much chose GameStop as my first retail job. And let me tell you, choosing it was not easy. I had a lot of options to choose from, and my first choice was like any clothing store. And like I love going to them. I love Armani, I love American Eagle. But I really couldn't see myself folding clothes all day because although I can fold clothes, I pretty much take forever on those things, and I know that I'd probably do terrible at the job. So I realized that growing up, I grew up as a gamer. And I pretty much went to GameStop like every time I pre-ordered a new Guitar Hero game. So I figured, why not? And like the old saying goes, choose something that you're passionate about, that you would love to work at. And I definitely loved going to GameStop every time, so, I chose that. Now, in the beginning, I called about eight GameStops, and only one store was hiring. So I pretty much lucked out, and I chose the one in the Ironbound on Ferry Street. So pretty much like any retail store, I filled out an application and I handed it in to the manager. And then about a week later, he called me in for an interview. And what was so funny about this interview is that pretty much afterwards, he basically told me that I was hired on the spot. And if there's one thing I distinctly remember, it's that he made sure to point out to me that I was overqualified for the position and that he wanted to make sure that I really wanted to work there. And so, needless to say, I definitely told him yes, like I love GameStop, it's going to be a new experience, I was very enthusiastic about it. And so, for my first few weeks, I was ecstatic, I really wanted to go there, I was very excited. And I don't know if all retail stores do this, but I didn't receive prior training to the job, and instead I received on-the-job training. So, yeah. So, I had a mentor. Yeah. So I had a mentor who was the assistant store manager at the time, and I had a really good experience with him. He basically taught me the ropes, working with a cash register, how to maintain store cleanliness and all that. And And what was so awesome about this experience was that as I was learning, we were talking about games, we were talking about life, pretty much anything. We were starting up conversations. And he was conveniently playing a live stream of a competition that was going on for Marvel vs. Capcom 3. If any of you guys don't know what that game is, it's like one of the most competitive fighting games like to date. So seeing that, was really awesome. And so aside from that, I conversed with the customers that came in, and overall I had a positive experience. But things took a turn for the worse when he left the store. And once he left the store, things just started crumbling down. So if you're ever interested in working at GameStop, I must warn you about the scheduling and hours. So when it came to scheduling, I don't know if all retail stores do this, but I had to call a day before the new work week began. Meaning that every Saturday I had to call in and ask what my schedule was for the next week. And this was really inconvenient because I couldn't plan any events effectively because I pretty much just had to wait on GameStop in order to tell me which days I'm working. Meaning that if I had plans for Sunday and I was called in on Sunday, those plans just blew up in flames. And, that was the end of that. Furthermore, schedules were never made weeks or months in advance, which was extremely inconvenient, not only to me, but for the rest of the employees. Because again, we can't really plan events effectively if we have to keep waiting on GameStop to tell us when we're working. And to even further that, schedules sometimes were not even made on time. Meaning that I called in on Saturday and my manager told me that the schedule wasn't made yet. So if I was working on Sunday, I wouldn't know that because the schedule wasn't made. Meaning I had to call the next day, and thankfully I didn't get an urgent call or something like that. But for the people who were working on Sunday, I really feel bad for them because they had a really terrible time. And if you were wondering what my hours were each week, oh yes, I averaged 4 to 12 hours. This is, I think, exclusive to GameStop actually, in which no employee gets enough hours like that. In fact, on my next slide, you'll see that there is a hierarchy of positions when it comes to GameStop. And this hierarchy includes, I guess, way too many positions. So we'll start off with the lowest one, which is a game advisor, which is what I worked as. Now, a game advisor gets paid minimum wage, $8.25. And the responsibilities include, working with the cash register, maintaining store cleanliness, so working with the walls and all that stuff, just making sure that everything is in order. And once you get promoted, you become a senior game advisor, which means you only make about another $1 an hour. But what's really, I guess, unfair about this is that a senior game advisor has a ton of more responsibilities than a regular game advisor, meaning that he or she has to, handle the money for the register, basically do cost rep check or whatever that is. Basically a lot of more strenuous things. And if you get promoted again, you become an assistant store manager, which means you make another $1 an hour. And what's unfair about this transition is that the assistant store manager basically does the same thing as a senior game advisor. There really isn't any difference when it comes to responsibilities, except the dollar difference. And then lastly, you have a store manager, which makes only a measly $13 an hour. And the responsibilities of a store manager include going to unexpected conference meetings and getting calls 24/7 from your employees. And it's a very strenuous time. So one thing that really irked me about my experience there was that there were constantly issues between, I guess, my manager, the assistant store manager, the coworkers, what have you. The first one is, of course, scheduling issues. I called my manager, weeks in advance to notify him that I was going to be unavailable on certain days because I'm pretty sure we all have lives. We have to do certain things.
I'm pretty sure.
And so when I called, on Saturday for my work schedule, he scheduled me for the days that I was going to be unavailable. And I looked at him and I'm like, really? I told you weeks in advance that I was going to be unavailable to say. But apparently he never remembers, and this happened more than once. So because of that, he basically had to go back to the schedule he made and to just redo it. So it was very inefficient and very time consuming. Probably one of the most standout things for GameStop is that everyone has a pessimistic and negative attitude. Pretty much no one wants to work there at all. They have a really terrible time, and who can blame them? Corporate pretty much mistreats employees. basically 24/7, and it really showed. Every time I went there, my coworkers were always complaining about how they hated the job and how like GameStop really sucks as a company. So that wasn't delightful, and that really made my experience a lot more negative, I guess. And lastly, is a funny story that I will tell you guys involving that bit over there that you see that says $9.99 on it. So this involves miscommunication between employees. So a new assistant store manager came in, and we also got these bins. Now these bins hold used games, and the purpose of these bins is that way it basically lessens the clutteredness, I guess, on the walls. Because one of the responsibilities of every employee is to make sure that the walls are organized and alphabetized. And if you have too many games on the wall, that's going to be extremely time consuming. So we got this bin to basically make that process easier. And so the purpose of this is to basically just take every used game you can find and just put it in there. So that way the customers can just look through it and spend their time doing that. Now, when I was putting the games in there, my assistant store manager came over and told me, what are you doing? Like, what you're doing is wrong. And I looked at her and I'm like, I don't understand. Isn't this what the purpose of these bins are for, to put as many used games in there? And her argument was that, no, it's supposed to be pretty and that it's supposed to look nice. And, to an extent, okay, yeah, it's supposed to look nice, but at the expense of, like, filling it up halfway, that was definitely something off. So because I'm a low-level employee, I'm supposed to pretty much obey whatever she says. So I did that, and I didn't get to finish because, again, the process was very time-consuming, but if I explained that to her, she probably would not have gotten it. So I raised the issue to my manager and my coworkers, and needless to say, they told me that what I was doing was the right thing, and that my assistant store manager was in the wrong. So, okay, when it comes to customers, in case you guys haven't heard, GameStop does not, and I repeat, does not prioritize customer satisfaction at all. Meaning, we are going to try and take every nickel and dime out of you. And the reason why this is because GameStop really doesn't have any competition. Like I said earlier, when it comes to like Walmart and Best Buy, yeah, they sell video games, but GameStop completely blows them out because they just have like the best deals on the market. So because of that, us employees pretty much had to meet really unrealistic demands. When it comes to retail stores, I know that each of them have like certain goals to achieve, whether it be money or like signing up with like a card or something like that. That's basically what we had to do here, except that for some reason corporate made it so that we had to reach really high numbers in a short amount of time, and that really took a toll on us because every week we tried our best, but we still weren't able to meet those goals. And it's sad because my manager pretty much called us or texted us every week saying hey guys, listen, we have to try harder next time because we didn't meet these goals. And I'm pretty sure on the inside he really appreciated the hard work that he did, but as a manager he was required pretty much to say those things in order to basically keep the store alive. So I mean overall, me and pretty much every other employee basically felt like a robot because every day was sell, 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 and not, have a nice conversation with a customer. And so at the end of the day, a lot of us were basically feeling like this guy.
Okay. How was your day? How was my day? Yeah. How was your day? Fantastic. Did you get your reserve goals? I didn't get reserve shit. Did you get your sub goals? No, I got no goals. You know why? Because there's 10-year-olds running around this thing going, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. Oh my god,
I love it. I added the accent. I'm assuming that's for Spanish people.
Yeah, right.
Needless to say, I'm pretty sure if I kept working there, I probably would have became that guy. But I took the safe route and I decided to quit in January because I really couldn't take another day working there and having such a negative experience every time. So, that's what I did. And mind you, I told my manager that I quit because I wanted to focus on school, but I pretty much lied to his face, and I should have told him that his store was run very inefficiently. And, that was that. Now, although I've been bashing GameStop throughout this whole presentation, there are ways to make the store better. And one way is to schedule way in advance, meaning, schedule weeks and months so that way the employees basically have time to plan their own events. Secondly, do away with the very complicated hierarchy that I showed you earlier. Instead, what we can do is have a game advisor position, and then like a sort of supervisor, and then a manager. That way, the money is allocated nicely, and that way, workers are actually paid, a considerable amount. Also, prioritize customer satisfaction, although I don't expect GameStop to do this anytime soon. Basically, it retains customer lifetime value, which is really good for them. And lastly, one of my personal things is to make the community more involved, meaning that GameStop actually does video game tournaments, and basically brings in all the members of the community. And I think that if they did this more often, GameStop would become a lot more popular and a lot more enjoyable to work at. So in conclusion, I definitely do not recommend going to GameStop and working there, because you are really going to have a terrible time. However, if you're a customer there, I do not discourage you in buying games there, because if you play your cards right, you can definitely get like the best deals on video games. And that'll be it. That was my experience.
Okay.